And ESPN College Football, presented by Cars.com, brings us to Atlanta today. A pair of unbeatens in the ACC meet as Georgia Tech hosts North Carolina. Hi again, everyone. Bob Wischusen alongside Bob Davie. Thanks so much for spending part of your weekend with us. You were the head coach at Notre Dame, but before that, you were a defensive coordinator. Welcome to a defensive coordinator's nightmare, right? Trying to figure out a way to stop this Georgia Tech offense.
That's what will drive you up into the broadcasting booth, these triple option teams. But this game is all about triple option football. Georgia Tech runs it, but it doesn't matter who has the ball. It affects the total strategy and the rhythm of this game, regardless who's on offense or defense. You look at Georgia Tech statistics, unbelievable. #1 in offense in just about every category. North Carolina, though, on defense, has a chance to make a name for themselves this afternoon.
Yeah, if you can figure out a way to stop that Georgia Tech offense, you are doing your job, but it is Georgia Tech that won the toss. They deferred their option to the second half, so North Carolina will have the football. TJ Thorpe moves the pile out to about the 38-yard line, and that's where Bryn Renner will command this North Carolina offense. Only a sophomore. He was the backup to TJ Yates the last couple of years. How about the 81% completion percentage, though, through the 3 wins for North Carolina?
But with all those statistics, it's really about protecting the ball. He's thrown 4 interceptions this year, also had a fumble.
First down carry by Giovanni Bernard. He turns the corner. Bernard down the sideline. Inside the 40-yard line before he's shoved out. Sean Tapley led the way with a terrific block on the edge.
In this era of spread offense, you're going to see North Carolina in a condensed set with 2 tight ends right here. They're going to pack it in, just come with their signature play, the off-tackle power. Bernard does a good job of just bouncing that ball outside. Georgia Tech a poor job of containing, keeping it inside.
Giovanni Bernard, only a redshirt freshman, averaging over 7 yards per carry on the season now, as Renner drops to throw for the first time. Tipped ball, and it's incomplete through the hands of Nelson Hurst as we take a look at the Carolina impact player.
Well, first we just saw Giovanni Bernard. He had 100 yards last week against Virginia. Built very low to the ground, tough for the defense to see him behind that big North Carolina offensive line. Dwight Jones, he's developed into a complete receiver. He is their deep threat. On defense for Georgia Tech, Julian Burnett. Bob, we met with him yesterday. He's only about 5'8", but he's relentless. Really fun to watch.
He's the leading tackler for that Georgia Tech defense. Here's the toss to Bernard on 2nd and 10. Hammers his way for about 3 to the 35 of Georgia Tech. Daniel Drummond was there to make the stop. It'll be 3rd down and 7.
And this is an interesting down right here, right off the bat for North Carolina. Their kicker, Barth, is out. I don't think they're going to play for a field goal. I think this is really 4-down territory, which will affect this call right here for North Carolina.
Well, we were given a heads up by the North Carolina coaches. They might, on 3rd down and medium, even run the football, trying to set up manageable 4th down distances because they want to keep the ball away from Georgia Tech. They go empty on 3rd and 7. There's the slant, and it's complete for a 1st down. Dwight Jones makes his first reception of the game, and it's a big one on 3rd down, a gain of 11. Dwight Jones has at least 1 touchdown catch in each game this season for Everett Withers. In his first year, now he's the interim head coach. Obviously, Butch Davis was let go back in July after the scandal and the NCAA investigation from last year. Bernard bounces it left. Another nice run by Bernard, a gain of nearly 8 yards. It'll be 2nd down and 2 as we take a look at coach's focus points.
I think the first thing is kind of what we talked about a minute ago, steal a possession. Find a way to keep the ball, keep it away from Georgia Tech. May have to fake a field goal, fake a punt, go for it on 4th down. Defense, you'll see Georgia Tech is a play-action pass team off the option. Don't give up the home run. On defense as well for North Carolina, force negative plays. Don't try to read that triple option.
2nd and 2, Bernard up the middle. It's 1st and goal, North Carolina. Already over 40 yards rushing in the game for Giovanni Bernard.
as this game develops, you're going to see a 5'8" Bernard. You can see him right there in that huddle. Compared to these offensive linemen, this is one of the biggest, best-looking offensive lines in college football. And Giovanni Bernard at about 5'8", it's really difficult on defense to sort him out through all those big linemen.
Now, John Shoup compared him to a Maurice Jones-Drew type, a guy that can get lost behind big offensive linemen. First and goal. There's Bernard again, bounces it outside left. Finds a way to get to the 5-yard line. Second down and goal.
Talk about a pro-style offense in this area of spread. North Carolina with a lot of 2 tight end looks. They're going to bring the tight end around as the extra blocker right here. When you talk about condensed formations, you're talking about a lot of those wing tight end type combinations for Carolina.
Again, they bunch the formation with extra tight ends. Second and goal inside the 5. Bernard up the middle at the goal line. He's in. Touchdown Heels.
The question for Georgia Tech, are they big enough? Are they stout enough defensively to handle this strong power running game? The answer on that first drive is no. North Carolina with a very impressive balanced drive.
Redshirt freshman walk-on kicker Thomas Moore knocks it through, and it's 7-0 Carolina. Great start for Everett Withers' team, and we're off to a quick start here in Atlanta. Welcome back to the ACC on ESPN. North Carolina with a 7-0 lead over Georgia Tech. An 8-play, 63-yard touchdown drive, capped off by the touchdown run of Giovanni Bernard to start the game for the Heels. They've got the 7-0 lead, and now the job, Coach Davey, is their defense will be out there for the first time against the triple option.
And why that drive was so important for Carolina, you get limited possessions when you play against a triple option offense. You have to take advantage of every possession. Carolina did on that opening one.
Orwin Smith just inside the 10. Smith gets to the edge. A flag down, a very good return, but a couple of flags thrown back at about the 28-yard line.
Hold 58. It's first down.
So here's the first offensive play of the game for Georgia Tech. The first offensive play all 3 times they've played so far this season has resulted in a touchdown. And last week, Coach, it was Orwin Smith, 95 yards on the first play from scrimmage.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like this. In 3 straight games, they have scored a touchdown, not on just their first possession. I'm talking about the first play of the game. There you see Orwin Smith with the counter last week against Kansas, goes 95 yards for a touchdown. I'm betting right now they won't score on this first play.
They're going to throw on first down. Down the sideline, it's Smith. A gain of about 18 yards as Tevin Washington finds Orwin Smith. Well, that's still not a bad way to start if you're Georgia Tech, but at least they didn't score against the Carolina defense. Let's take a look at Tevin Washington. 7 touchdowns against no interceptions, and really does a great job running this offense.
How about 6 completions of 70-plus yards, leads in the NCAA. That's big plays. Now, this early in the season to have 6 completions over 70 yards.
There's the pitch to Peoples. Embry Peoples blown up. Terrific tackle by the cornerback, Charles Brown. That's how you play the triple option.
And you're going to see that develop throughout the day. That was a tremendous job by Charles Brown, because he's going to have a blocker on him. As this thing develops, watch the slot back arc out right there. That is the toughest thing in football, to play through that blocker and make a play in the open field. That was a great job by that corner, Charles Brown.
So a loss of 1 on first down sets up second down and long. The keeper by Washington. Maybe a half-yard shy of a first down, dragged down by Kevin Reddick. It'll be 3rd down and a half-yard as we take a look at Tech's impact players.
Well, these slot backs, Orwin Smith, a hybrid wide receiver running back. Last week he hurt Kansas, 157 rushing, 108 receiving. Wide receiver Stephen Hill. He's not going to touch it many times, but he's 6'5". Play action pass, always a weapon. It all starts with stopping the fullback. Kevin Reddick, that middle linebacker, is going to have a big day.
The toss to Smith. He's got the first down and more. Nice cutback by Orwin Smith. Inside the 40-yard line of Carolina, a gain of 12 and a first down for Georgia Tech.
The thing you're going to see with Georgia Tech, there is a lot of non-option plays. You're going to see, like against Kansas, they ran the counter for a touchdown. There you see the toss sweep. So that's what's so difficult about defending him. It's not triple option every time the ball is snapped. You get some non-triple option plays as well.
The toss to Roddy Jones. He's down the sideline. That looks to be good for another Georgia Tech first down. And that would already be the 3rd play or the 4th play on this drive of 10 yards or more.
And what you're going to find out, how will North Carolina play run support? This time you're going to see the safety get chopped. Watch the fullback coming out here, and right there, when I talk about the toughest thing in football, that's what I'm talking about right there. When people talk about low blocks, that is very difficult. You don't see that every week, particularly as a defensive back.
This time they keep the defense honest. David Sims on a dive right for a gain of 2. Kareem Martin made first contact for North Carolina.
Talk about defending this triple option. If they can stay on rhythm, that means if they have no negative plays, if they don't get an offensive penalty, if they eliminate it, it's almost impossible to defend it. I think on the flip side for Georgia Tech, we just saw on that first drive, can Georgia Tech's defensive line respond to the challenge of North Carolina? I think the third thing, Paul Johnson, Georgia Tech has really struggled in the kicking game with penalties the last couple years, just break even.
Well, that's more than a break even for the North Carolina defense. Kevin Reddick comes up the middle and grabs Tevin Washington before he has a chance to make the pitch. That's a loss of 2.5, maybe 3 yards, sets up 3rd down and 10.
Yeah, and one thing I said with my focus points for Carolina, don't try to read the triple option. Don't be reading that thing. Attack and try to force negative plays. You are never going to read it as well as they execute it. That time, Kevin Reddick on the little linebacker stunt just blew it up.
Could be 2-down territory here for Georgia Tech, depending on what happens on 3rd down. And a false start. Orwin Smith will back his team up 5 yards.
Offense.
Well, this rushing attack for Georgia Tech has put up off-the-charts numbers through the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, here's the thing that is shocking, though. Pass efficiency, #1 in the country. 3rd down conversions, red zone success. They've been down there 15 times and scored 14 touchdowns. So it's not just running the ball. They lead the nation in passing efficiency right now.
You have to figure if you're running for 430 yards a game, your play-action pass is going to be pretty effective. Straight back to pass, Washington. Slings one right. Short of the first down is Stephen Hill. It sets up a very interesting decision for the Georgia Tech offense. 4th down and a couple from inside the 25.
Yeah, they'll go for it. Triple option teams, this is right in their wheelhouse right here at 4th and 4. 4th and 3, he's even more comfortable. Surprisingly, he is going to kick the field goal. And you go back to that penalty, that false start penalty on 3rd down, took them out of 4-down territory. 4th and 4 is a lot different than 4th and 3. And this is a win right here for Carolina.
40-yard field goal attempt for Justin Moore, the sophomore. He only has 1 career field goal made, and that was against Kansas last week from 24 yards out. This one looks pretty good. He's got it. So the sophomore is able to get Georgia Tech on the board, but they trail North Carolina 7-3 here in the first quarter.
ESPN's College Football is presented by Cars.com, where confidence comes standard. And in part by DirecTV. This season, NFL Sunday Ticket is included at no extra charge when you switch. Call 1-800-DIRECTV.
If you're a student here at Georgia Tech, one class you can take is called In Space. It deals with neuroscience, cognition, and computer-generated avatars that are used in both the entertainment and scientific research industries. And basically what I take away from looking at that is that the people that go to Georgia Tech are far smarter than I am. Bob Bashuz and Bob Davey here in Atlanta. Another short kickoff coming down to Sean Tapley. And a good return. Very good field position at the 34-yard line for North Carolina after we check in with Reese Davis for the first time. Reese?
All right, Bob, I want to keep your finger on the pulse on ESPN2. Eastern Michigan and Penn State getting late in the first quarter. Silas Red has carried it 4 times for nearly 30 yards. Nittany Lions in the red zone trying to score. On ABC, Pittsburgh forced Notre Dame to punt after running into the punter penalty. That is scoreless. And on ESPNU, Sparty on top of the Chippewas by a touch.
It's a 7-3 lead here for North Carolina. And Carolina back to the offense after a very impressive 8-play touchdown drive to open the game. They go right back to the toss to Giovanni Bernard. Moves the pile for a couple of yards. Steven Sylvester, the outside linebacker, in the 3-4 defense. Coach, it's funny. You talk about Georgia Tech. We spend so much time talking about defending the triple option. They throw just as kind of out of the norm defensive scheme at you. Very few teams in college football play a 3-4.
Yeah, you look at Al Groh right there. 16 of the 32 NFL teams run 3-4, but very few true 3-4 teams in college ball. It's not the Pittsburgh Steelers 3-4. It's not an attacking zone blitzing. It's really a read front. You look at those defensive linemen, all that weight back. They're a reading, non-pressure type defense.
Play action for Renner. Sets up the screen to Bernard. He's got a first down and more to midfield. Finally bumped out by Isaiah Johnson. Good downfield block, though, from Dwight Jones.
Well, first you can see why Renner's completion percentage is so high. Second thing you can see, it's an NFL-style offense. Very seldom do you see tailback screens anymore in college ball. It's all the wide receiver screens. Just another way to get Bernard in space.
Renner for the home run down the sideline to Jay Boyd, incomplete. And that one came out wobbly. Rod Sweeting in excellent position. And tonight, ABC's Saturday Night Football brings Les Miles and number 2 LSU in to take on their 3rd-ranked opponent when they take on the 16th-ranked West Virginia Mountaineers in Morgantown. College football presented by Southwest Airlines in primetime tonight at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on ABC. And, Coach, that is hostile territory tonight for LSU.
Boy, LSU, a very tough early schedule. Games on the road, really Oregon at Jerry Jones Stadium, and then at Mississippi State, now at West Virginia.
3rd down and 7 coming up after Bernard picks up 3. T.J. Barnes was there to make the stop.
Well, anytime you take your shot on 1st down, as John Shute did, throwing that deep ball down the field to Jay Boyd, it sets up 2nd and 10, which puts you now in 3rd down and 7. Not the ideal situation for this young quarterback to be in. Keep your eye on Dwight Jones, number 83. He has become the total wide receiver for North Carolina. Big target up there at the top of your screen.
Renner under pressure, lost the football. Scrambled for it at about the 43-yard line. Jeremiah Atauchu ripped it out. North Carolina gets the recovery, so they will be able to punt it away. But Georgia Tech gets the stop on defense.
Atauchu is the player on this team, even though he's a sophomore, voted by his teammates, most likely to be an NFL star. And what Al Groh in nickel situations takes him from outside linebacker and makes him a rush player, probably the biggest impact player as far as the front 7 when it comes to big playability.
Our first look at Thomas Hibbert, true freshman punter. He is also a walk-on, and this is a beauty. Down the sideline, and that will change field position. Out of bounds at the 23-yard line. Georgia Tech with the football back when we return to Atlanta. A pair of unbeatens in the ACC, and it's a good one early on. North Carolina 7, Georgia Tech 3. Under 3.5 minutes to go in the opening quarter. Second offensive possession for the #1 offense in America through the first 3 weeks of the season. Dive up the middle to David Sims. And he's cut down after a gain of 3 by Kevin Reddick. And let's go back to Reese.
Bob, Taco Bell studio update. Here is a story of a man named Brady. Brady Hoke, his current team, Michigan, against his former one, San Diego State. His current team has Denard Robinson, who has scored twice this time from 53 out. And the Wolverines were on top 14-0 halfway through the first. Not far away on the banks of the Red Cedar, Kirk Cousins of Michigan State finds Sparty's all-time leader in receptions, B.J. Cunningham, to set up a score there on top of Central.
Well, Reese, there goes Orwin Smith. This is a big play offense that very rarely needs to throw it to make a big play. And Orwin Smith inside the 40 down to the 38 of North Carolina, a gain of 36.
Well, again, a tremendous job of blocking the perimeter. It's not an option play. It's a toss sweep. They're just going to take the ball right now and toss it to the slot back in motion. But the real key is the blocking out here on run support. Right there and right there, the corner, Charles Brown allowed that ball outside him again. These corners are forced to play run support, which is something you don't do on a week-to-week basis.
The toss to the near side. This one's a solid gain for Embry Peoples inside the 30 down to about the 29-yard line. That's a gain of 9. And coach is unstoppable, as at times the triple option looks. Why don't more teams in college football run it?
Yeah, that's about a 20-minute discussion. The biggest reason, alumni administrators think it's old school. And they don't think it's cutting edge like the spread. And people want to see the ball in the air in the passing game. But you talk to coaches around the country, defensive coaches, this is the toughest scheme to defend.
This time the toss goes to Roddy Jones, and he is dragged down for a loss of about 3. Belly Okapu came through to make the stop. He only had 9 tackles last season, so he's a first-year starter.
Well, there's where speed on defense. Tech had the perimeter blocked on that, but Okapu, the linebacker, just shot the gap and made the play again. That's why I talk about defensively, attack this thing. Attack it. Don't try to sit back and read. They will out-execute you and get you blocked. You need to force some bad plays and take some chances.
Play clock down to 5 on 3rd and 5. Washington will throw for it to the sideline. High. What a catch made by Stephen Hill. Climbs the ladder and pulls it down with one hand for a first down.
This is a 6'5" receiver. That's going to be on SportsCenter, but you talk about a one-hand grab. That's all of 6'5". Did he have possession, though? Did the ball come down and touch the ground first?
They're going to review it. 30 seconds to go in the first quarter. And I think we're having a malfunction issue with the referee's microphone, but they did announce a replay review. He certainly got a foot down. That wasn't the issue. He is inbounds. It's whether or not he had controlled the football and completed the catch. And boy, that looks like a good catch.
It does. The fact is, as you said, his foot is down right there, right there. I think what they saw was his hand now come on. That was a great catch. A great catch on a 3rd and long situation. Stephen Hill averaging 39 yards a catch. Struggled last year. A lot of drop passes. A lot of pressure on him. Everybody thinking he was going to be the next Calvin Johnson, Demarius Thomas type receiver. That was a tremendous athletic play. See why this offense is tough to defend, right?
I don't know what your answers are for one-handed catches up against the sideline and on top of trying to stop the triple option. But now Georgia Tech is in their wheelhouse in the red zone. Sims, boy, he is a pile driver. And he moves the pile for close to 5 yards. Jordan Nix tried to drive him back, and that takes us to the end of the first quarter. Georgia Tech driving to try to take the lead when we come back.
Welcome back to Atlanta. College football lives here.
Well, the North Carolina cheerleaders are having a much better time here than their defensive coordinator, Art Kaufman, or the head coach, Everett Withers, because they're trying to figure out a way to slow down a Georgia Tech offense that is back in the red zone. They held them to a field goal last time with the help of a Tech penalty. Now it's 2nd down and 6 to start the second quarter at the 16-yard line.
You see so much of this unbalanced formation by Georgia Tech. They really like this formation because they know what Carolina's lining up in on defense.
Great job by the Carolina defense to stretch out Tevin Washington. That was the 15th play offensively so far for Georgia Tech. They were averaging 9 yards per play before that loss. It is just a nightmare trying to stop this kind of an offense.
I mean, not only big plays, but you see him hand the ball to the fullback on 1st down and gain 5 yards, which looks like a 2-yard gain. But in this game, you talk about in the red zone, Georgia Tech right here, 15 for 15 coming into this game on scores, 14 touchdowns. A little different right here, though, on 3rd and 11. More of an obvious passing down.
Washington under pressure, trying to buy some time, flips it into no man's land, a dangerous throw, and it's incomplete. Jordan Nix was chasing Washington to the sideline, and if Charles Brown had turned his head in time, he might have had an interception.
Well, this is something you don't see a lot right here. Georgia Tech kick a field goal. They only have 1 field goal this season, but they also had a field goal blocked.
38-yard attempts for Justin Moore, already 1 for 1. Only his 2nd career field goal, good a short time ago. And this one will hook left. Well, a win for the North Carolina defense just got better. You stop Georgia Tech in the red zone and they come away empty. Carolina's still on top. Celebrating its 7th year, sponsoring the Good Hands Field Goal Nets, Allstate makes contributions to participating universities' general scholarship funds for each field goal and extra point kicked. To date, Allstate has contributed more than $2.4 million in scholarship money. Bob Wischusen and Bob Davie back here at Bobby Dodd Stadium in Atlanta. Giovanni Bernard tries to turn the corner and can't do it for North Carolina. Great job by Rod Sweeting to hold the edge and drop Bernard for about a 4-yard loss.
Possessions are like gold in this game. It's all about long, sustained drives for whichever offense has the ball.
2nd down and 13. They'll run it with Bernard. He gains 2. Atachu made the stop. It'll be 3rd down and 11. And the biggest number in the game a moment ago, 0 in the red zone for Georgia Tech. They don't get in the red zone too often and fail to score.
Yeah, 15 for 15 in the red zone. We showed that graphic. The missed field goal now makes them 15 for 16. This is what Al Groh, the defensive coordinator, lives for right here. Gets in the nickel package. He uses his outside linebacker 45 as a rusher. Atachu, he's their playmaker.
Atachu is lined up in the slot man to the right, top of your screen. Let's see if he comes. And there's a false start. Now it'll be 3rd and 16.
False start. Offense, number 73.
You have to think right here if you're John Shoop. A punt is not the worst thing. You have the young quarterback, Renner. Don't make the turnover. Maybe a screen, wide receiver screen, tailback screen. Don't turn it over right here.
Again, 45 and white towards the top of your screen. Atauchu. Now he shifts, trying to disguise the look, and a timeout call. So North Carolina will talk things over before 3rd and 16.
ESPN's College Football, brought to you by Acura, Advance, and IHOP. Try IHOP's new Caramel Applelicious Creations, starting at just $4.99. Make it an IHOP day.
A spectacular day here in downtown Atlanta, the Gilded Dome of the Capitol. 3rd down and 16 for North Carolina, and the crowd going wild here at Bobby Dodd Stadium. Bryn Renner sets up the screen. Giovanni Bernard pulled down inside the 20-yard line. Ijan Cross made a terrific play to fight off a couple of blockers and corral Bernard. Here comes the punt unit.
Well, we talked about Julian Burnett, about 5'8", number 40, the inside linebacker. Let me see if I can see him. I think he's right here. Watch him sort through this traffic right here and make the play in the open field. He is a relentless player. Strongest kid on the team.
Thomas Hibbert gets the punt blocked. It takes a North Carolina roll. It's fielded and brought forward, and it'll be 1st and 10 for Georgia Tech at the 23-yard line of North Carolina. Darren Waller took the charity hop and picked up about 5 or 6 more yards for Georgia Tech.
Virginia came very close to blocking a couple punts against Carolina. You're going to see him come right up the gut on this shield punt. That's a great effort right there by number 88. Watch this effort. Right there. Gets that left hand on it. That is a tremendous play right there.
So Georgia Tech back in business at the 22-yard line. Washington back in the red zone. A gain of about 5. It'll be 2nd down and 5 at the 17.
Tell you, when coaches watch tapes, and I watched the Carolina-Virginia game last week, Carolina had a high snap on a punt. And about 3 times in that game, Virginia came very close to blocking a punt with great pressure up the gut against that shield. Georgia Tech coaches, good job of watching that tape and coming after the punter right there. But a great effort.
So Waller gets the block. A dive play left to David Sims. Quentin Coples, who right now is number 2 on Mel Kiper's big board, number 90 in Carolina blue.
Well, Quentin Coples isn't going to have a lot of fun today. First of all, he's a defensive end at 280 pounds. They won't block him a majority of the time. They'll just read him where the offensive tackle blocks down. Guys hate, particularly playmakers, hate playing against this offense because those pass rushers can't rush the passer, and those DBs can't play man-to-man coverage. They have to play run support.
3rd down and 4. The toss to Orwin Smith. Blockers out in front. He's got a 1st down. 1st and goal, Georgia Tech at the Carolina 9-yard line.
Paul Johnson knows right now what Carolina's check is to this unbalance. See these 2 receivers up here. He knows the run support player is right here, and he's going to pull the slot and block the run support. He knows he's getting a 3-deep look, and he's going to try to get the ball in that alley right there. Here you see it again. He'll give you a steady diet now of this unbalanced formation because he knows what you're playing.
Now they run the counter. There's the toss, and it's on the ground. A turnover. North Carolina gets the recovery on the sloppy pitch by Tevin Washington. Trey Boston came up with the recovery for the Tar Heels.
That's what you count on if you're Carolina. Can they execute? They come with a little trap option. Just a poor pitch right there.
Travis Hughes, number 9 in blue, came up and forced the pitch. He's a true freshman linebacker, and he got the start today in front of Zach Brown at weak side linebacker. Zach Brown, the leading tackler for North Carolina, was put on special teams only for disciplinary reasons by Everett Withers. And the true freshman comes up and forces the play. For the first time today, we see Ryan Houston. He picks up maybe 1.5 yards, and it's time for today's Aflac trivia question. Which FBS team has the most wins in its current home stadium? The answer coming up a little bit later on.
Well, what really kills you, if you're Paul Johnson, Georgia Tech, that turnover was on first down. So it's not the case in this offense a lot of times of the defense stopping you. It's can you execute enough?
Play action. Renner dumps it underneath, and it's dropped. It'll be 3rd down and 8. Right through the hands of Jack Tabb, a true freshman tight end. So now, how much of a risk are you willing to take on 3rd down and 8 inside your own 15-yard line?
I think because they were conservative on the last 3rd down with the screen pass, I just know natures of offensive coordinators. He hates to be conservative 2 3rd downs in a row. I look for him to go ahead and let it rip right here. Again, I think about Dwight Jones, 83, the big talented receiver, but they're going to throw the ball here.
A lot of movement. No down lineman for Georgia Tech. They throw the slant. It's complete. What a terrific effort by Dwight Jones. Depending on the spot, boy, it looks like he's a 1/2 yard shy of the first down.
And if you're Everett Withers, this 1/2 yard, you're begging for this 1/2 yard because you want to go for it on 4th down if it's short. But you know what a major risk that is. You can't go for it on 4th down. Wow, it's a game of inches. He wants to go for it because he's a defensive coach. He does not want to give that ball back to Georgia Tech. But he also wants to get that interim head coach tag taken off that interim. And he knows if he doesn't make it on 4th down, he'll get second-guessed forever.
Let's see what job Carolina does of protecting the punter here. This time, Hibbert gets it off. Returnable for Zach Lasky, but he calls for a fair catch. Great field position, though, for Georgia Tech after a 40-yard punt. The Ramblin' Wreck with the ball at their own 41-yard line when we come back. A terrific college football Saturday coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. Part of the 3:30 time slot, a game with national championship implications in College Station as Oklahoma State and Brandon Weeden take on Ryan Tannehill and Texas A&M. Later on, you'll also have an opportunity to see Florida State and Clemson, a pair of ranked teams on ESPN. Kansas State in Miami. And Coach Davey, that matchup in the Big 12 should be a war between the Cowboys and Aggies.
Yeah, that would be a great atmosphere at Kyle Field and College Station. Oh.
Down the sideline, Stephen Hill, wide open, walks into the end zone with a touchdown.
Tell you what, when you ask your corners to play run support, they peek inside. Watch what happens right here. The corner peeks inside. He has the pitch. The real problem, though, was the safety who did not roll over the top and compensate for the corner. When you involve your corners in run support, they peek into the backfield. See that? If you're going to allow him to do that, the safety who shows up late has to roll over the top and play the deep outside thirds. Paul Johnson was licking his...
A 59-yard touchdown pass for Georgia Tech from Tevin Washington to Stephen Hill. Makes it a 10-7 lead for Georgia Tech, and back to the touchdown.
You wonder why that's so wide open. They're going to ask this corner to play run support, and then this safety roll over the top. But the counter action by the quarterback makes that safety go the opposite way. So that little subtle counter flow action by the quarterback throws that safety where he couldn't compensate for that corner. That's a great design by Paul Johnson, knowing that corner was playing run support to the wide side of the field.
Sean Tapley from just outside the 5. Out to about the 25. And now the answer to today's Aflac trivia question. We asked the question before. Which FBS team has the most wins in its current home stadium? Well, it's right where we are. 440 wins in Bobby Dodd Stadium for Georgia Tech. This has been their field for quite a long time, originally built back in 1913. It's a little grainy, but if you look in the lower right-hand corner of your picture, you will see Bob Davie there in about the 5th row. As he was here to take in the first game. Never played at Grant Field.
Still trying to stop that triple option. We were trying to stop the fullback back then. It's time for this Carolina offense to settle down, have a long, sustained drive. And to do that, you're going to have some success on first down.
And Renner changing the play with 5 on the play clock. It'll be a false start.
71. Offense. It's a 5-yard.
You always spend a lot of time as coaches going back and forth on offense. Do we check a lot at the line of scrimmage and try to get in the perfect play? That time, Carolina trying to get in the perfect play. They saw the strong safety come down. Ends up with a delay of game.
Well, Carolina, based on their last 3 drives, would probably be happy just making a first down and would give themselves a chance to maybe change field position. They've been behind the chains ever since their opening drive. Play action for Renner. Up the seam, incomplete. That's an inaccurate throw by Bryn Renner. He missed Dwight Jones as we check in with Reese.
Bob, on ABC, Notre Dame and Pittsburgh. Fighting Irish had just gotten the ball. We've heard a lot about Sierra Wood. Let's hear a little about Jonas Gray. 79 yards he had taken to the house. His first career touchdown puts the Irish and Dr. Lou on top of Pittsburgh in Mayday, 7-3.
That's right, I forgot. That's a little civil war going on back there in the studio. 2nd and 15. Renner steps up. He'll get what he can. Picks up about 6 yards. So it will be 3rd down and 9. Steven Sylvester was there to make the stop. And again, it's 3rd down and long for Carolina.
Yeah, Bob, you said it. You know, Carolina again in 3rd, just way too many 3rd down and longs. Now what you're going to see is this scramble around defense by Georgia Tech. Al Grove's going to give them a lot of different looks. And then Atachu, 45, the outside linebacker, you're going to have to block him in pass protection.
Let's see what Al Grove dials up on what turns out to be 3rd down and 10. Renner out of the gun. Here comes the blitz. He's under pressure and down he goes. We talked about Jeremiah Atachu being the designated pass rusher for Al Grove. Loves to bring him off the edge. Well, Atachu gets the sack.
Well, he just ran by Carl Gaskins. You're going to see him at the top. Again, when they go nickel, he's the outside linebacker. He's out here. I'm not sure you can see him, but he's going to run by the offensive tackle. Just enough of a dip with that shoulder, close the angle. You better stay out of 3rd downs if you're Carolina because you can't block them.
And again, it's Hibbert punting from inside his own 10-yard line. And again, it'll be great field position for Georgia Tech. Fair catch at the 44-yard line as we go in the trenches with Bob Davie.
Yeah, every week we're going to find something, investigate something about these offensive linemen that people don't think about. You look at the difference between offensive tackles. James Hurst at 6'7" for Carolina. Ray Benno, the beauty of the triple option, 6'2", 290. Totally different body styles. Now you talk about job description of the two guys and stances. You look right here at Carolina, all their weight forward, feet up, heels up off the ground. Carolina, pass protection. So you need the big, tall body compared to the 6'2" guy with all that weight forward in the triple option. Totally different job description.
Washington to throw. Slings one to the sideline in traffic and intercepted. Picked off by Trey Boston. Still on his feet. Boston hit from behind. Needs to protect the football and does. That's the second first-half turnover by Tevin Washington. A 19-yard return for Trey Boston and a big momentum shift for Carolina.
Yeah, a little surprised at the call. You know, last series it was play action on 1st and 10 by Paul Johnson. Surprised that he comes back to that. You're going to see the little wheel route. If we let this roll right now, you're going to see the inside receiver become the outside receiver. And really just a poor decision to throw that into traffic. But normally when he throws it on 1st and 10 in one series, you can almost guarantee he's going to run it on 1st and 10 on the next. Really surprised that squandered away some great field position. Tevin
Washington's first interception of the season. Bernard to about the 40-yard line, a gain of 3. Tauchu made the tackle, brings up 2nd down and 7, and a chance for North Carolina to really take back momentum in this game. You look at the clock. I mean, the triple option can be a quick strike offense, but more of a grind it down the field offense. If you can even take 3 or 4 minutes off the clock here and kick a field goal, you might not leave Georgia Tech enough time to get points before halftime.
That turnover was major play in this game right there.
Renner into traffic, tipped ball, and that's intercepted. Picked off on the carom by Isaiah Johnson. A terrible decision by Renner. He threw that into a crowd of gold and white.
Well, we said right off the bat when we introduced the quarterback, can he protect the ball? And you said it exactly right. I mean, that's just a terrible decision right there. I mean, there are 4 Georgia Tech players. Heck of an interception right there by Isaiah Johnson that falls into his lap.
Although that coach flies in the face of everything that John Shoup told us Bryn Renner was doing well when we talked to him earlier this week. He said that John Stockton is going to the Hall of Fame because he got the ball to Karl Malone. A little toss to Orwin Smith. And Smith banged out of bounds at the 30-yard line after a gain of nearly 9 yards. Tony Stewart came up with a big victory in the opening race of the chase, stamping himself as a championship contender. Now points leader Kevin Harvick, Dale Earnhardt, and Jimmy Johnson will look to answer back this weekend. The chase continues with the Sylvania 300 at New Hampshire. Coverage begins Sunday at 1 Eastern on ESPN with NASCAR Countdown presented by Napa. But Coach Shoup said that Bryn Renner was doing a great job of just running the offense and distributing the ball to his playmakers and not forcing things. Well, he forced one there. Tevin Washington tries to protect the ball, comes up short of the 1st down, and we check in with Reese.
Bob, SportsCenter right now brought to you by Discover Card. Clint Trickett's going to get the start for Florida State against Clemson today in Death Valley, 3:30 on ESPN. Regular starter E.J. Manuel, who is injured against Oklahoma, will play only in an emergency. And Joe Paterno is on the sideline as Penn State's on top of Eastern Michigan 10-0. That game is on ESPN2. Paterno's coach from the press box up until this point this year.
All right, Reese, 3rd down and 1, and a dive by Washington moves the chains for Georgia Tech.
Talk about neat situations. Just Reese talking about that Florida State game with Trickett, the quarterback tonight. You know, his dad, Rick Trickett, career college assistant offensive line coach. Can't help but think back when Trickett threw his first pass, and they showed Rick Trickett on the sideline with the tear in his eye.
That was great stuff.
Yeah, one of the most emotional guys in coaching.
The counter this time, and the toss. Embry Peoples has a lane across the 40. Gains 8 yards. It'll be 2nd down and 2 for Georgia Tech.
When you're a corner like Charles Brown, you have a chance to make a lot of plays, but I want to show you how difficult it is, again, with this blocker arcing out on you in the open field. Right now, your eyes have to be on the blocker. That is really a good job right there, but that's about a 5-yard gain. How difficult to play off a blocker like that.
All in all, it went for 8, and now a 1st down to David Sims. Well, Carolina's defense has done to Georgia Tech's offense what no defense they've played so far has done. They've gotten stopped them a couple of times in the red zone and a couple of takeaways as well.
They have. They've done a great job forcing negative plays. The problem, they've given up big plays. If they could just be a little more consistent, and I think a big thing they have to do right now is figure out this unbalanced formation you see right now, how they're going to play run support. Out here in this area, who's going to support the ball?
Toss to Orwin Smith, a little stop start. And he scoots down the sideline across midfield.
They didn't block him that time. They forgot to block the safety. They still gained 5 or 6 yards. But right now, that's the go-to thing that Paul Johnson has. Get in unbalanced. Realize they're playing cover 3 with the safety inverted down there, and just block the safety and pitch the ball out there.
Well, the number of times that I thought you pointed it out when we watched tape of how you block for the triple option, it's amazing how often the defensive linemen go unblocked.
Yeah, you're going to see it right here again. You know, the unbalanced.
And they'll throw. Tevin Washington gets outside the pocket. Takes a pop and spins maybe for a yard. It'll be 3rd down and a long 4. Darius Lipford came up and made the stop.
We do every week, Bob, a locker room alert. You know, why those coaches race into that meeting room or to that locker room at halftime. What strategically do they have to figure out and make adjustments to? Right now, if you're Carolina, it's the unbalanced line, how we're going to play run support. And then you've got to be really careful with your corner on run support because they gave up the big pass.
Third down and a long 4. Washington, nice cutback. On the keeper, he's got a first down. Tim Jackson had a chance to bring him down at the line and missed the tackle.
Yeah, you said it. I mean, they had an opportunity. This is one right here where they have the quarterback accounted for, but look at the size right there of Tim Jackson. You're asking a 270-pound defensive end to get that quarterback down in the open field. That's tough.
Bob Wischusen and Bob Davie back here at Georgia Tech in downtown Atlanta, Bobby Dodd Stadium. And this has been a clinic put on at least between the 20s here in the first half for Georgia Tech. 1 minute and 38 seconds to go before halftime, and number 25 just down the road from the Georgia Dome. But they have failed to convert a couple of times in the red zone. Washington throws a jump ball down the sideline. Fighting for it is Hill, and he's got it inside the 5. 1st and goal, Georgia Tech.
Well, he came into this game averaging 39 yards a catch. This is pretty simple. Doesn't matter if you call it triple option or call it spread. He might have pushed a little bit. Might have got away with a little offensive pass interference right there. At 6'5", he's a tough matchup. And if they're going to let him put his hands all over the defensive back, Trey Boston at 6 foot, he's going to win that every time.
Tevin Washington threw it up there, asked him to make a play, and he did. 1st and goal. Washington on the keeper. He's a couple of yards shy of a first down.
Bob, you go back
the end zone,
to that interception by Bryn Renner. You see how big it is. You cannot give the ball right back to Georgia Tech's offense. You have to sustain the ball on offense. That interception was just inexcusable by Carolina.
And Georgia Tech with plenty of time, over a minute to go before halftime, and they've got 2 timeouts. So with Renner trying to shake it off on the sideline, the 11th play of the drive. 2nd and goal to 2. Washington maybe picked up a half yard. It'll be 3rd down and goal, and now most likely Georgia Tech will probably spend one of their timeouts.
I don't think so. He's going to squeeze that clock down, knowing Paul Johnson.
I would figure maybe you spend a timeout after you let the clock run down.
Yeah, he's going to run this thing all the way down. I think you're probably going to get that unbalanced and just run that toss sweep out here to the wide side of the field right now.
Well, you'll certainly have an opportunity to call timeout before 4th down. The only 2 times this season that Georgia Tech has missed in the red zone. Today against North Carolina. 3rd and goal. They toss it to Roddy Jones. He's got a touchdown.
That time they ran the toss away from the unbalanced. But that is the red zone, locker room, whatever you want to call it, alert right now for Carolina. Figure out that toss sweep and how to stop it. That's what's killing them. Turn it over against the triple option, you're going to pay. That one's on North Carolina's offense.
And a 12-play touchdown drive makes it a 10-point lead for Georgia Tech as we head back to Reese Davis.
Hey, Bob, coming up on the Bud Light halftime report, Notre Dame and Pittsburgh playing on ABC. It's a tight game. It's gone back and forth. 7-6 Irish have the lead. We'll have all the highlights for you. And Brady's Bunches, Brady Hoke's new team against his old one. There's a favored child. Wait till you see what Denard's done. And Jesse Palmer will join me to break down LSU and West Virginia tonight.
All right, Reese, thanks very much. We go back to the Georgia Tech touchdown. That stretches the lead to 10.
Yeah, when I talk about unbalanced, to this short side, all Georgia Tech has is a tackle who's actually a tight end and a slot right here. If they're going to bring the slot from the other side across and run the toss to the short side away from the unbalanced. Again, you're forcing that corner, Trey Boston, to have to play run support. One play, he's defending Stephen Hill down the field on a jump ball. The next play, he's playing run support. You see why those corners, it's a tough game for them.
And it's amazing because those corners are the players that the guards, the tight ends are going to try and block. A short kickoff to about the 31-yard line to Curtis Bird. It's amazing. You've got Quentin Coples oftentimes on the defensive line. Number 2 on Mel Kiper's big board behind Andrew Luck. And he largely goes unblocked in this game. The guys on the defensive line for Georgia Tech, they just release and go looking for guys on the second level.
When this game's over, Quentin Coples will be glad to say, hey, I never have to play against the triple option again. I don't have to worry about the New York Giants someday when I'm playing for the Jets coming out in this triple option because they hate it. And as much as these players hate playing against it, the coaches hate it even worse. Even the coaches' wives hate it because they listen to those defensive coaches all week long complain about trying to scheme against this stuff.
Timeout called on defense by Paul Johnson with 6 seconds to go in the first half. We'll step away for 30 seconds and come back to Atlanta with Georgia Tech on top by 10 in a moment. Another look at Quentin Coples over on the North Carolina sideline. It is not fun to be a defensive lineman and play against the triple option. Georgia Tech with a 10-point lead now and what might be the final play of the first half. Giovanni Bernard adds his stats a bit. A 9-yard run, and that will bring us to halftime. So Bryn Renner's interception costs North Carolina a touchdown before halftime. Georgia Tech with a 10-point lead at the break as we go back to Reese and the guys. Welcome back to ESPN College Football presented by Cars.com. The 50th anniversary of the Ramblin' Wreck, and so far for Georgia Tech it has been a solid performance. 17-7, a couple of mistakes in the red zone, or it could be more lopsided, but we expected North Carolina to have trouble with the triple option, and they did.
Yeah, and part of the problem, Carolina's offense has not been able to sustain any drives. To be quite honest, Carolina's lucky they're in this game right now because, as you mentioned, Georgia Tech with the 2 turnovers, one of them down about the 10-yard line. And right now, we'll find out right away what adjustments Carolina makes because they're going to be back on defense right now.
Orwin Smith to bring back the kickoff to start the second half. And he is brought down inside the 20-yard line. Let's take a look at our locker room alert and what North Carolina was worried about.
I think the first thing they have to solve, there's a lot of things, but this unbalanced formation with only 2 guys on the short side. Tech takes the slot. He's the pitchback. It's just a toss sweep. The fullback's going to be the lead blocker out in support. Carolina keeps putting the linebacker on the quarterback. That block right there, they're going to win that block on offense. They have to somehow take the pitch from the line of scrimmage against the unbalanced, not allow that ball just out on support. That's too much to ask of that strong safety with all that grass out there.
Handoff to Roddy Jones. Not a lot there as we take a look at some first half statistics. And again, the first 2 times this season that Georgia Tech has gotten into the red zone and not scored points in this game against North Carolina. And still, look at the dominant second quarter performance in terms of yards and big plays also for the Georgia Tech offense.
9 plays over 10 yards. Carolina's defense has made some negative plays, but they've given up big plays consistently.
The toss, and Jones tries a cutback. And he's brought down inside the 25 after a gain of 2 or 3 more. Good job by Kevin Reddick. So it will be 3rd down and a long 4 for Georgia Tech.
Very few times do you see that option run into the boundary or short side of the field if the defense is balanced. That time Tech helped Carolina by running it into the short side. These 3rd and 6s, always interesting calls defensively because the option is never out of the picture. Here's that unbalanced formation we talked about right here for Georgia Tech.
3rd down and a short 5. Georgia Tech 6 for 8 on 3rd down. And they've got another. And again, it's Stephen Hill. He has made big play after big play in the passing game. And he's out to midfield, a gain of 25 more yards.
Now what happens, even though it's 3rd and 6, you have to play pass coverages that are run support pass coverages. You're going to see here on the all-22, they just line up and they're in 3 deep because they have to respect the run, and Stephen Hill just runs right up the seam. So you get such simplistic coverages on passing downs. You know, that's stealing if you can throw and catch. But you have to defend a run. Here's our play right here.
Orwin Smith on the toss. Breaks a tackle with a flag down. Might be a face mask upcoming on Jonathan Smith. This could make this a big gain. As it stands right now, it's a gain of 6 yards for Orwin Smith. But it'll be a face mask against North Carolina.
Well, here's our locker room alert. And Carolina continues to play it the same way. They're going to ask the strong safety, Jonathan Smith, out here in the open field to play off the blocker right here. He's going to have to play off the block of the fullback and then make the play on the ball carrier. You're going to see how difficult this is. Actually, they changed up the blocking scheme just a little bit right there. But again, it's the run support to that unbalanced wide side of the field that continues to give Carolina problems.
Counter handoff to Embry Peoples, and he scoots inside the 25. Down to about the 22-yard line. That's a gain of 8 yards on 1st down. 2nd down and short again for Georgia Tech. This is a huge drive. When you think about the game from a Carolina standpoint, you give up the touchdown right before halftime, marrying that with Georgia Tech having won the toss and deferring their option to the 2nd half. They can basically put together 14 unanswered points and really put Carolina in a hole. And a 1st down carry for David Sims. And back in the red zone, Georgia Tech.
And what happens mentally? You go in there at halftime, you try to make all those adjustments. If you're North Carolina's coaches, there's a little bit of a credibility thing right now with the players. You know, when they go in there, they're playing a different kind of offense. Coach, are we going to make the adjustments? Are those adjustments going to work? And then Tech comes out the first drive of the 2nd half here, and all of a sudden those adjustments don't mean anything. So it's kind of a mental endurance game. Tech's winning that way.
A 1-yard gain for Sims. Georgia Tech is still averaging about 8 yards per play on offense, though.
What happens, too, defensively, you don't have your full menu of defenses you normally have. You know, if you're playing a typical offense, you have a whole menu of things you can do, adjustments you can make. You always go into these games with limited game plans because you never see these offenses. So once Paul Johnson decides understands what you're in, it's tough to get it adjusted because you just don't have many things to go to.
Nice job by Carolina there. Travis Hughes came up the middle and got Tevin Washington as Tim Jackson was all over the pitch, man. And now here is really a must down, you would think, for this Carolina defense. 3rd down and 13 or so, 3rd and 12 back at the 19.
Probably the best thing Carolina has done today. The linebackers, Travis Hughes, also Okapu, 41. They've had some negative plays when they've just kind of shot the gaps.
Georgia Tech is 7 for 9 on 3rd down. Washington flushed out of the pocket, and he's dragged down. That time the pass rush of Sylvester Williams brought him down right about at the line of scrimmage. And North Carolina's defense bends, but they don't break. A big job done by the Carolina defense to hold Georgia Tech to 3.
Yeah, you have to go back to the negative play on second down by Travis Hughes. Getting a passing down like this, it's really tough on Georgia Tech. They're not really wired to do that. But again, the negative play on second down forced that passing situation.
36-yard field goal attempt makes it a 2-touchdown lead. So Justin Moore knocks it through. Georgia Tech stretches to a 20-7 lead early here in the third. It is the 50th anniversary of one of the great traditions in college football, the Ramblin' Wreck here at Georgia Tech. This Model T leads the Yellow Jackets out onto the field before every game and has been doing so for the last 50 years. And these fans at Bobby Dodd Stadium, when they see that car come through the banner, terrific atmosphere. TJ Thorpe on the return, and he gets hammered at about the 25-yard line as we go back to Reese.
Bob, this innovative look is brought to you by AT&T, and it's in a look at the LSU defense against Mississippi State on the ESPN Axis. Now, Chris Relf of State appears to have plenty of time to throw, but LSU has everything covered up, and before long, Sam Montgomery gets Relf. Geno Smith will have to deal with that tonight. This innovative look by AT&T, rethink possible.
All right, Reese, thanks very much. Coach, when you think about that game tonight, LSU at West Virginia, Geno Smith is going to be looking at some kind of a defense.
No question. What an atmosphere, too. Kind of a mini Baton Rouge setting in Morgantown tonight. That place will be alive.
Renner under pressure, dumps one off. Dwight Jones makes the catch, and there goes Dwight Jones. He makes a big play. All the way down inside the Georgia Tech 35-yard line.
Maybe one of the best qualities Renner has is keeping plays alive. This time, instead of taking off and scrambling, he's going to get some pressure right here. Watch, he's going to step up. He's going to have some pressure in his face, but instead of panicking, he keeps his eyes down the field, and a neat little one-handed catch right there by Dwight Jones.
3 catches for 59 yards for Dwight Jones. He averages 112 yards per game, top 12 in the country. Renner throws it behind Jones. He makes a nice adjustment to the ball, and he's got about 12, maybe 13 more yards. And North Carolina, after 2 quick strikes to Jones, they're in the red zone.
He really looks like a tight end, doesn't he? Dwight Jones, you look up and you don't realize it's a wide receiver. You think he's a tight end at about 230 pounds. John Shoup really high on him. Says he's become just the total wide receiver. Excellent blocker.
It was really interesting talking to Al Groh as well, the defensive coordinator for Georgia Tech, about how unique this offense is for North Carolina. We'll talk about that in a moment. Renner back to throw again. Again it's underneath, and again it's Dwight Jones. And a flag comes out. A big hit by Rod Sweeting draws a flag. If you use the helmet, shoulder, anything above the shoulders as a weapon to the opposition's head, it's a personal foul. It's a pretty good call. I mean, that's helmet to helmet, isn't it?
It really
Coach?
is. It really is. And it's not like Sweeting adjusted to try to deliver the blow or necessarily launched himself. But such an emphasis, and rightfully so, on the protection of players.
Well, still, we are without our referee's microphone, but that's a half the distance to the goal, personal foul. And it's 1st and goal for North Carolina at the Georgia Tech 8-yard line.
Really set up by Dwight Jones. Some little reaction play. Just the big play that Renner made, stepping up and throwing it to him on the little crossing route, got this whole thing going.
2 of the best red zone teams in the country in our game this afternoon. Let's see what Carolina does. Renner flips the screen to Bernard. And he fights to about the 5-yard line. It'll be 2nd down and goal.
Very few teams, because there's so much spread, use those tailback screens. You talked about Al Groh talking about Carolina's offense. It really is a West Coast pro-style offense with a lot of Bill Walsh philosophy in it. Short, crossing, high percentage passes.
Bernard's the motion man. And with extra offensive linemen, they split some of those linemen out. They fake the bubble screen and throw it into the end zone, and it's a touchdown. Nelson Hurst, the tight end, got lost. Great drive by North Carolina.
That's an innovative play call by John Shoup, the offensive coordinator. You mentioned it. They faked a little bubble screen. They're going to fake the bubble screen to the outside receiver, but the tight end, who they think is the blocker, is going to release right through for the touchdown. Good play call. Georgia Tech off balance.
Thomas Moore sneaks through the point after. That's Bryn Renner's dad. His father, Bill, coached him in high school, and he sees Renner throw a touchdown pass to bring his team within a score.
ESPN's College Football, brought to you by Prudential. Prudential, bring your challenges. And McDonald's, I'm loving it.
The beautiful Fox Theater here in downtown Atlanta. Built in the late 1920s and in 1976, named a National Historic Landmark. And another landmark here in Atlanta where we're at. Bobby Dodd Stadium at Georgia Tech. Bob Wischusen alongside Bob Davie right in downtown Atlanta. And Georgia Tech has seen their lead cut down to 1 touchdown. A terrific drive as Bryn Renner marches his team right down the field to score a touchdown. 5 for 5 for 65 yards on the drive was the North Carolina quarterback. Orwin Smith on the kickoff return. Can't even get to the 20-yard line. And Sunday NFL Countdown has a new start time. 3 hours of the best analysis in the business. Headed up by Chris Berman with all the guys. You'll get the latest updates from stadiums around the league right up until kickoff. Sunday NFL Countdown presented by IBM on ESPN tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. And ESPN2 has a new fall lineup each Sunday morning as well, starting with Outside the Lines, hosted by Bob Lee. That begins at 10 a.m. tomorrow.
You're a big NFL guy. Do the Jets games every week.
It's true.
Jets at Oakland Sunday.
True.
What would Rex Ryan do if the Raiders came out in this triple option? Think he could defend this stuff?
Little wide receiver hitch. It's caught by Tyler Melton. I would think he would tell Calvin Pace, Bart Scott, David Harris to go blow some guys up.
It's not that easy. That's the same thing they're telling Quentin Coples, who may be the #2 draft pick next year in the entire draft.
Again, we talked about this in the first half then. If it is this unstoppable in offense, why do so few teams run it?
I told you, it's old school. Most athletic administrators aren't going to have the courage to go hire a coach to run this, because if it doesn't work, they turn on you very quickly because it's all run.
Very close to another first down for Embry Peoples as Tevin Washington barely got the pitch away. Let's see where they spot the football. Boy, it is right at the first down marker.
Tell you guys going to be glad when this one over too is Trey Boston. You see him over there right now getting coached up a little bit on the sidelines, but these corners now, particularly the way Carolina's playing their defense, they really, really have to wear a lot of hats. But Bob, that is a great question you ask about why more teams don't do this. And some of these spread offenses are trying to implement parts of this out of the shotgun. You know, Oregon will do some option football. When Urban was at Florida, they did a lot of option football. You just sugarcoat it and make it look more current by doing it out of the shotgun. But to run this, you have to totally be committed to doing this.
Well, it's 3rd down and 1 inch, so we'll see what Georgia Tech does here. But I just know from watching film with you yesterday. Now, you're an old defensive coordinator. I mean, before you were the head coach at Notre Dame, you were Lou Holtz's defensive coordinator for nearly a decade at Texas A&M, and you had the shakes. You were watching that tape, acting as if it was your worst nightmare as a defensive coordinator, trying to coach your guys during the week to defend this offense. 3rd down and 1 inch. And they'll sneak it with Washington, and he'll pick it up So it's a first down for Georgia Tech.
Because it's the mental endurance that you have to go through. And I mentioned again, the players from Carolina really don't want to play against this. It's totally foreign to them. They don't get a chance to make the kind of plays that they normally make week to week. So it's convincing all your players of what it takes philosophically to play against this. I mean, that's the starting point.
Quick hitch to Hill. And he works hard down the sideline to the 40-yard line. Eventually gets pounded out of bounds. Darius Lipford was the last man to deliver a blow to Stephen Hill. And they have to untangle the pile after Hill fought for 9 yards.
This is a tough matchup. You know, you're going to get almost all one-on-one coverage. That's a great effort by a 6'5" Stephen Hill, who you have to be happy for. I mean, not many guys want to come play in a triple option offense where you have to learn to be a blocker. He's hung in here and become really a total receiver. Got a lot of respect for him. I mean, he's going to be a pro player before all is said and done, Stephen Hill.
Bouncing outside, Orwin Smith. What a job to stay on his feet, pick up the first down. Matt Merletti couldn't bring down Orwin Smith near the first down marker. It was interesting talking to Paul Johnson about the types of players that he recruits, and you get a good look here at the type of quick offensive lineman you need to recruit.
And this is one of the few times, Bob, where you're going to see the offensive tackle actually have to block the guy over him. And you see right there, he's just going to stalemate. They're not going to be guys big enough and strong enough to knock guys back. But very few times will you see him actually block the defensive end lined up over him.
Trap handoff to Sims. He's to the second level. He's close to another first down. Markeithus Otis made the stop for North Carolina, a gain of 9.5 on first down. But you brought up earlier Stephen Hill as a wide receiver, why you would want to come to Georgia Tech and play as a wide receiver in the triple option. And Paul Johnson said, well, you're not going to catch 60 balls here. You'll probably catch 40, but the 40 you catch will be for more yards and bigger plays than the guy that catches 60 in a pro-style offense, because I'm going to get you a lot of one-on-one coverage.
You heard that recruiting story. It was like we were sitting in the home with Paul Johnson selling us.
There goes Washington. He weaves his way for a first down to the North Carolina 37.
But I think Paul Johnson made a great point yesterday, and this is very valid. I thought it was a tremendous point. He said, these guys that are here now are guys that have bought into this system. They came here to Georgia Tech with their eyes wide open. You know, there's not the tailback that thinks he should be the I tailback. It's not the wide receiver that thinks he's getting cheated. He recruited these guys now. Where taking over for Shan Gailey, he had to convince those guys who were here that it was the same as the pro offense.
That's an inaccurate throw by Tevin Washington. And a deep breath for everyone here at Bobby Dodd Stadium. It'll be second down and 10. And coming up later on tonight, the big one between LSU and West Virginia. Number 2 on the road to take on number 16. Saturday Night Football presented by Southwest Airlines at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on ABC. And we talked earlier about just the gauntlet that LSU has run early in the season to play the games they've played against the opponents they're playing before the SEC schedule starts.
Yeah, I remember a couple years ago, LSU shutting this Georgia Tech offense down in the Chick-fil-A Bowl.
Cutback run by Washington. Nearly
LSU,
to the 30-yard line.
Talk about, excuse me, Bob. You talk about LSU. I know Bob Goodrich, our producer, produced that bowl game a couple years ago. LSU with a month's preparation now. North Carolina doesn't have the luxury of a month preparation. Even though they took time in the spring, they took time in fall camp. LSU with a month to prepare, the kind of athletes they had, was able to shut down Georgia Tech. The only other team that I saw really shut them down, Iowa, 3 years ago in the Orange Bowl, shut them down. But both of those were bowl game situations.
Big third down. Trap handoff to Sims. He's got a first down and more. First and goal, Georgia Tech, all the way down to the 7-yard line.
Here's where Paul Johnson does a great job of calling plays. We talked about unbalanced formation. Normally that ball is going out on the perimeter. This time he just runs the little gut play and gets Carolina's linebackers running out of there. Look at those linebackers just take off running. The sister play to that toss, just run the belly to the fullback. That's a great play call right there.
The dive this time to Charles Perkins. And the redshirt freshman's down to the 6-yard line, a gain of 1, 2nd down and goal.
You watch Paul Johnson on the sidelines. There's no call sheet. There's no wristbands. He just called him, same as he's always done. And what I respect about him, he has stayed true to this offense. He's not changed one thing. But, I mean, he's not doing a whole lot of script the first 15 plays and staying up there till midnight worrying about what the game plan is going to be. He just calls it when the game starts.
Washington keeps it himself at the goal line. Just shy. It'll be 3rd down and goal from a foot away. Well, why would you change it? I mean, all you do is gain 550 yards every game.
Yeah, but when you go 6 and 7, like he did last year, even though he won the first 2 years, I'm telling you, when you lose or you go 6 and 7 in this offense, people will turn on you faster than if you're throwing it 50 times a game. They just associate this with old school ball. And that's wrong, because this is as high tech as there is if you really appreciate X and O's. We're going to review that.
Again, we're having a problem with our referee's microphone. I believe it is the ruling on the field a foot shy of the goal line, but they will take another look to see if indeed Tevin Washington got into the end zone. You almost have to have the camera right down the goal line to be able to get indisputable video evidence to change the call. And it's where is the football?
Here's a great angle here.
I think they made the right call.
Yeah. These guys do a remarkable job now, don't they? Week in and week out with these reviews, they're normally right on their first call. You have to love how fast they're doing this, too. Mechanics are pretty quick right here.
The review, the ruling on the field stands.
So it's 3rd down and goal from just inside the 1.
Everett Withers would love, as you mentioned, to have that interim tag taken off as head coach. All he can do, I love the way Chip Kelly says it, just win today.
Yep.
You can't worry about the big picture of all that. Just keep doing what you're doing, and it'll take care of itself. But look for the quarterback here. They love these little quarterback follows. They don't risk any handoffs or pitches, obviously.
13th play of the drive. Washington tries to sneak it, and he's in. Touchdown, Georgia Tech.
It's 13 plays, 81 yards after North Carolina scored on a 5-play drive. They'll probably set up to go for 2 here with a 12-point game, try to make it a 14-point game. And the reason I like this call, 3 yards is in your wheelhouse if you're a triple option team. I don't necessarily like going for 2 this early.
It's a touch.
Are they going to review the touchdown again? The ruling on field was a touchdown. Again, we've had a problem in and out with our referee's microphone. It looks like they might go upstairs to review once again.
Yeah, that's not
now you
close.
you need indisputable video evidence to overturn the call on the field. Even if you wanted to overturn it, how could you find Tevin Washington in that pile?
Yeah, I didn't think it was close.
Yeah, to me, this is one of those moments. I understand from the replay booth their responsibility, I guess, is to buzz down for anything that might be
that's a touchdown.
Up in the air, but to me this is a silly review. You can't see the football.
It's interesting. Now in the NFL, isn't the rule that every scoring play is automatically renewed?
It's just like college.
Reviewed.
Every scoring play that is in any type of dispute, they will go to review. But Why would you buzz down? A couple of times you look at it in the replay booth, you can't help but realize there's no way you could overturn it, even if you thought you were wrong. It has to be a touchdown.
Put yourself in Everett Withers, Art Kaufman's shoes right now. Calling defenses right here on this two-point play. When you've seen just about everything there is, from counters to sweeps to quarterback runs to fades to big Stephen Hill. I mean, the first thing, you have a big 6'5" receiver out here that you may just throw the fade to.
Two-point try for Georgia Tech. They'll run the toss to David Sims, and it doesn't get much easier than that. It's a 14-point lead.
Oh, and by the way, they'll run the toss option to the fullback. Frustrating. Take a guy like Copels, who's going to be a first-round pick, and you realize it's a frustrating afternoon. Somebody blocking down around your knees. You'll be glad when this one's over.
You're watching college football on ESPN, presented by Cars.com.
It's been a good day for that Georgia Tech offense as Tevin Washington engineers a 13-play touchdown drive that answers the North Carolina touchdown drive. So now it's back in Bryn Renner's court, and he's back in a 2-touchdown hole under 90 seconds to go in the third quarter. Bob Wischusen and Bob Davie here in Atlanta. Short kick coming down to TJ Thorpe at the 10. Pretty good field position for North Carolina across their own 35-yard line as we head back to Reese.
Bob, it is time for a Sports Center Right Now, brought to you by Discover. Trickett will get the start for Florida State against Clemson today, 3:30 Eastern time on ESPN. E.J. Manuel's shoulder is not ready to go, and the regular starter for the Seminoles would only go in an emergency. Joe Paterno returned to the sideline against Eastern Michigan for a while for Penn State. Games on ESPN2, and Joe Pa has now moved back upstairs.
If you're Everett Withers, you're thinking about how many more possessions will I get in this game. This possession right here is critical for Carolina. They're not going to get a whole lot of possessions in this fourth quarter.
Renner finds a seam to Dwight Jones. And Jones, he is tough to bring down. Fights for 9 yards.
You could see him being an H-back tight end in the NFL, Dwight Jones. But again, Renner, you mentioned, just threaded the needle right there.
And John Shoup mentioned about Dwight Jones that people don't realize he's 230 pounds. He's kind of built low to the ground, as he described it, for a 6'4" guy. He is tough to get on the ground. Giovanni Bernard breaks a tackle. That's a big first down for North Carolina. And some tempers start to flare on the sideline as we take a look at today's Game Track, brought to you by Bud Light.
Yeah, I agree. This is their last drive. I mean, there's a lot of choices because they've had a lot of big plays. But that call right there to the fullback on the belly and then the fullback on the option shows the diversity to me in this Paul Johnson offense. You know, that fullback's been a blocker for most of the day. Now you see the fullback out on the perimeter. Great response drive right there.
Renner, a drop. Sean Tapley had it right in his hands and dropped the ball at the 30-yard line. It'll be second down and 10.
Talk about stealing a possession if you're Carolina. You can see how the triple option affects everything. I mentioned you're thinking about how many possessions you're going to get left. But you also realize Georgia Tech's going to continue to probably move that ball. You cannot give it back to Georgia Tech.
Bill Renner coached his son in high school. He's the head coach at Chapel Hill East, Butch Davis's high school, and he sees his son with a big hook up to TJ Thorpe. A first down into the red zone, an 18-yard gain down to the 20. And that should take us to the end of the third quarter.
Yeah, Eric Smith 88, one of their top receivers, not playing today with an ankle. TJ Thorpe steps up.
So North Carolina driving at the end of the third quarter, down 2 touchdowns. Very important drive for North Carolina as we begin the fourth quarter. In a game where the possessions are limited, the clock really gets eaten up by that Georgia Tech offense. North Carolina trying to pull within a score. Renner up the seam. He's got a man into the end zone for a touchdown. Eric Ebron, the tight end, got loose. A strike thrown by Renner, and the sophomore quarterback answers again.
You remember yesterday, Al Grove told us about bunch formations. How you have to have a coverage specific to handle the bunch. That time, Carolina lined up with those receivers bunched up, and the tight end went right up the seam.
First play of the fourth quarter. And the extra point added by the walk-on Thomas Moore. Again, Casey Barth, terrific North Carolina kicker.
Let's take a look right here. You're going to see the tight end right here. He's going to delay for just a second and then go right up the seam. Just a 2-deep coverage. That little delay by the tight end froze those linebackers. Another well-designed play by John Shoup.
North Carolina only runs 10 offensive plays in the third quarter. And in the second half overall, they've got 2 touchdowns in their 10 offensive plays, and they have cut the lead to 1 score again.
Yeah, and that's what this game is. Talked about Carolina stealing a possession. I still feel that way right now. For Carolina to win this game, they're going to have to steal 1 more possession than Georgia Tech, either with a turnover, some kind of big play on offense, because if it just keeps going back and forth, Georgia Tech's going to win this thing.
Stephen Hill tries to turn the corner.
Put that ball away.
Every coach in America that might be watching us right now says put that ball away when they see it out there loose. But now the pressure goes back to the North Carolina defense. I mean, at some point, they're going to have to find a way to get a stop against this triple option.
You look at as well as Carolina played on offense in the third quarter, they only had the ball 2 possessions. So they may get it 2 more possessions in the fourth quarter. So somehow they either have to force a turnover, or if they get it back on offense, take a risk on 4th down, because Georgia Tech, they're going to move the ball. It's getting 1 more possession than them if you're Carolina.
There goes David Sims. A Georgia Tech first down, a gain of 11 for David Sims as we take a look at some of our statistics. And at the top of the statistics page, you'll notice possessions and why it's so important, specifically in this game, to talk about how infrequently you get the ball, comparatively speaking, with how it normally plays out. These 2 teams have combined for 17 possessions. Normally, you'd expect to get the ball about 14 or 15 times each.
That's exactly right. I mean, there's Carolina with only 2 possessions the entire third quarter.
Toss to Roddy Jones, and he's brought down behind the line. Let's head back to Reese.
All right, Bob, I'm going to get you up to date on the game on ABC. Pittsburgh and Notre Dame's been a defensive struggle on 2nd and goal. Tino Sinceri back in the end zone to Hubie Graham, and the Panthers up by 5 late in the third.
2nd and 12 on the 40.
All right, Reese, we've got good games going on all over the place as we begin a big college football Saturday here on ABC and ESPN.
That first down stop by Carolina right there on our locker room alert play was big.
The counter. Washington breaks a tackle. It'll be 3rd down and 5 for Georgia Tech.
And Paul Johnson, let's go back to that previous play. We talked about our locker room alert. Watch the safety up here play off this block. You're going to see the slot back right there. That is a great play. The timing of that play off just a little bit for Georgia Tech, but that was a heck of a play by the safety. Tell you something, this is conceivably 4-down territory right here for Paul Johnson.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
On his own side of the 50.
No question. He feels like he can make 5 yards in 2 downs.
Tevin Washington, a shovel pass through traffic, and North Carolina sniffs it out.
Oh, man.
Boy, was that a good play by Kevin Reddick to corral Roddy Jones. That was only the 4th miss of the day on 3rd down for Georgia Tech. They are now 10 for 14.
Now, I've been watching a lot of triple option. I haven't seen that shuffle pass. And that was a great play by Reddick, 48, the linebacker. He beat the blocker. I mean, they had him blocked. He beat the blocker one-on-one. When's the last time Georgia Tech's punted?
You're not going to find another one. This is the first punt of the day for Georgia Tech.
That was a great play by Reddick.
And a short kick. This will come to the sideline and take a big North Carolina bounce. Close to the 40-yard line before it finally stops rolling. Sean Poole, the punter. An 18-yard punt. It's a wonder.
ESPN's College Football is presented by Cars.com, where confidence comes standard. And in part by AT&T. Get it faster with 4G. Rethink possible.
Welcome to the varsity. What do you have? 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 I have 2 chili dog on you. I have how?
At the varsity, that's actually the diet special.
Wow.
They put together in one day 2 miles of hot dogs, a ton of onion rings, 2,500 pounds of potatoes, 300 gallons of chili. 300 gallons of chili. That was my kind of place. Renner back to throw. Down the sideline and throws an interception. Picked off by Sweeting. The mistake made by Bryn Renner, who had played so well in the 3rd quarter. But to start the 4th quarter, he turns it over.
Talked about early. Can he protect the ball? Can Renner protect the ball? Here it is, 1st and 10. They have great momentum, and he just throws this thing up again with 3 Georgia Tech players in the vicinity. That's 2 just terrible turnovers today. And it's all about matching possessions. Carolina had a chance right there, didn't take advantage of it.
Sims up the middle for 2.5. Tydreek Powell brought him down. Quentin Coples in on the tackle as well, and it has been a tough day at times to be Quentin Coples.
Yeah, this is any defensive end that plays against this offense. You become frustrated, and here's why you become frustrated. You're triple teamed right there. You're chop blocked right here. It's a tough game. I mean, he wants to be productive. He wants to make plays, and he really can't. He's handcuffed because the style that he's playing against.
2nd down. Down the sideline, wide open, and dropping the football is Stephen Hill, and it looks like he might have come up lame a bit.
Wow.
Did his hamstring pop a bit as the ball was in his hands? That was a room service touchdown, and Hill dropped the ball.
It's the same exact play against the same coverage they scored on before. They're going to do the little counter fake. The corner's going to jump inside. The safety can't get over the top. He runs straight down the field. It's the same exact play. And he drops the ball. Wow.
Can you dodge a bigger bullet than the one that North Carolina just dodged? We've got a timeout with 11:10 to go in the 4th quarter as Georgia Tech calls their first timeout. A moment ago, Bryn Renner looked as if he might have cost his team the game as he threw an interception that Georgia Tech was not able to turn into a 1st down or a touchdown.
And I think that's why Georgia Tech's punting the ball. They feel like they're not sure Renner can be consistent enough to take it down the field.
Sean Poole, a terrific kick this time, but he can't get it to stop inside the 10-yard line. So Bryn Renner has a chance. Now, the reason that it's only a 1-touchdown game is because Stephen Hill dropped a sure touchdown. We'll show you the 2 biggest plays of the game made by Stephen Hill. He might be the first guy in SportsCenter history to make the top 10 plays on SportsCenter and the not top 10 in the same game. That's a top 10 catch. This one a moment ago, this goes in the not top 10 category.
Yeah, do you think his hamstring hurts after this? I promise you, Paul Johnson's hamstring hurt worse when he dropped that one, because that would have been a 2-point I mean, a 2-touchdown game, which would have probably closed it out.
So again, a chance to tie with a drive here by North Carolina. And a tough start as Giovanni Bernard fought his way out just across the 20-yard line. Julian Burnett, Daniel Drummond combined to bring him down.
You know, again, we talk about, without overusing it, if you're Carolina trying to steal a possession, that drop by Stephen Hill meant you just stole a possession. The fumble early in the game on the 10-yard line in the first half, when Tevin Washington put it on the ground. That's what I mean about stealing a possession. So they're still alive and well in this game. You might have been lucky to steal the possession, but you stole it.
Renner on a rollout, under pressure, and he'll be sacked. Jamia Thomas, the safety, got him back at the 15-yard line. Third sack.
Great job by Gene Robinson, number 1. I think he's right here, the corner. But watch, they want to throw this thing back. Yeah, and see the corner come off right there on that wheel route to the running back? That was great discipline by Gene Robinson, number 1, the corner.
After the sack, it's 3rd down and 15. Four-man rush. Renner still flushed out of the pocket. Drops it off to Bernard. Breaks a tackle. Breaks another. He's got the first down. What an effort by Giovanni Bernard to keep the drive alive for North Carolina.
Boy, great individual effort. We talk about he's built low to the ground. You see how short he is. He's 5'8". He's short, but he's not small. He is a strong, compact little runner. That's a great effort right there to convert that first down. Another bunch set right here by Carolina.
The toss to Bernard. Finds a lane. Wrestled out of bounds at the 35-yard line after a gain of a yard by Julian Burnett. I did a North Carolina game 2 years ago, I remember, talking to John Shoup, talking to Butch Davis at the time, and they were talking about Giovanni Bernard and what they thought he could become. Now, he's a redshirt freshman because he tore his ACL last year on day 3 of fall camp, missed the entire year last year. They were expecting that he was going to be a star for them last year coming out of St. Thomas Aquinas High School down in Davie, Florida. That's a football factory, and he is a special little player. Renner wanted to try to find Bernard again. Now he's going to manufacture the best he can with his legs, and he's got a first down.
Renner on the carry, forced down number 8.
Boy, you have to, again, I go back. You got to let it go. And Paul Johnson has to let it go. But Stephen Hill dropping that short touchdown pass that would have made this a 2-touchdown game.
Do you coach this possession for North Carolina like it's your last possession offensively in the game, in spite of the fact that there's 7.5 minutes to go? Bernard up the middle. He's loose. There goes Giovanni Bernard. Touchdown.
I'll tell you what, I don't know if I coach it like it's my last possession, but Giovanni Bernard, he's playing like it's their last possession.
Now you have to admit, from the play-by-play guy, that was a really well-timed question to the analyst, wasn't it?
It really was, but and then that big Carolina line, he went untouched. And a great block, Travis Bond, the offensive guard, but he went untouched, Bob.
7:22 to go in the fourth quarter. A 55-yard touchdown run that ties the game.
Let's take a look right here at Bond. He's going to get a run up in there. A block off this power play. Watch Big Bond come around. Just kind of engulfs. Maybe he has his hands on Sylvester a little bit. But Giovanni Bernard, the third down, as impressive as that run was, the third down catch and run were even more impressive. But boy, that's a little 5'8" guy that found that seam in that defense.
Giovanni Bernard now has 6 rushing touchdowns on the season. Last year, Johnny White led North Carolina with 7 rushing touchdowns for the year. So we're only in week 4. And the redshirt freshman from the Miami suburbs, it's only 1 touchdown run away from equaling the season high of any running back for North Carolina last year. And that'll get Al Groh to kneel down in front of his defense and ask for a better effort.
You know, in the end, it always does come down to players making spectacular efforts that decides the outcome of games. As much scheme as there's been in this game, that 3rd down conversion by Bernard, think back to Reddick on the shuffle pass, the tremendous tackle he made for Carolina. Some big individual efforts.
Orwin Smith now with a great kickoff return out to the 40-yard line. And let's check in with Reese.
Bob, it could be a huge day for the Mid-American Conference. Not only is Temple hammering Maryland, but Toledo and Syracuse. Toledo up 20-13. Antoine Bailey gets the orange even. They're going to the 4th quarter locked up at 20. Speaking of orange, Taj Boyd will lead Clemson against Florida State. Kickoff just under 51 minutes away. Boyd had a near career day, or school record day, I should say. Was a career day against Auburn last week.
Well, here in the ACC, Reese, we have a terrific game tied at 28. Back to the offense. Tevin Washington. A cutback for about 4. Tydreek Powell. He's on the watch list for the Outland Lombardi and Nagurski Awards. He made the stop after a gain of 3.5.
Possessions like gold. I mean, you are sitting there right now. If you're Georgia Tech, your defense is struggling. Paul Johnson not only wants to score, he wants to keep this ball. If you're Carolina, you're saying, are we going to get it back? So high, no margin for error on either one of these offenses coming down the stretch, because they're not going to get it back if they don't convert.
Washington with the pitch. There goes Roddy Jones down the sideline. Roddy Jones stays in bounds inside the 10. And it's 1st and goal for Georgia Tech. 48-yard gain for Roddy Jones.
A guy that's had a great day today, kind of quietly, is David Sims, the fullback. Keep your eye on him right here. Out on the perimeter on this block. Right there. Gets just enough of Trey Boston. But David Sims, who was a quarterback, kind of the unsung hero today for Georgia Tech.
Washington will keep it himself and get to the 5-yard line.
Yeah, actually a broken play right there. And I'll tell you, Paul Johnson will be as deliberate as you can be right now. He'll use the 40-second clock and he'll wind this thing down.
2nd down and goal at the 5. Neither of these 2 coaches wants to turn things over to their place kickers. The place kickers have been okay today, but both place kickers are extremely inexperienced. Now Orwin Smith lined up as a slot receiver to the right. They spread it out a little bit, and that gives Washington the lane to go up the middle for the touchdown.
That didn't take long. You talk about these ball-consuming, slow drives by the triple option. They score pretty darn quick now. The big play on the option.
A 4-play, 61-yard touchdown drive for Georgia Tech. That puts it back on North Carolina with 5:20 to go. (35-28).
Yeah, here's the touchdown, I believe, on the quarterback follow. They love this little play. Again, I'm talking about that fullback, David Sims. Watch him. He doesn't get the handoff. He becomes the lead blocker right there on Reddick. Call that the quarterback follow. It's just an isolation like the quarterback's the... Let's watch the linebacker right here. That's when you talk about low blocks, you talk about cut blocks. That's unorthodox for guys to have to play those kind of schemes.
Tevin Washington has had a couple of mistakes, an interception and a fumble, but He has also engineered some terrific drives. And speaking of engineering, some great drives. Tony Stewart came up with a big victory in the opening race of the Chase, stamping himself as a championship contender. Now points leader Kevin Harvick, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jimmy Johnson will look to answer back this weekend. The Chase continues with the Sylvania 300 at New Hampshire. Coverage begins Sunday at 1 Eastern on ESPN with NASCAR Countdown presented by Napa.
Tech last year really struggled punt coverage and kickoff coverage. It's a big test right here because I don't think the kicker can kick the ball in the end zone.
Well short of the end zone again, only to the 15-yard line. And out to about the 35 or so goes Charles Brown. He'll be marked down at the 34. So another opportunity for Bryn Renner. Great field position, plenty of time, all 3 timeouts, 5 minutes and 12 seconds. The clock is not a factor at all. But with that triple option being run by Georgia Tech as well as it is, this might be your last possession. If you give the football up here without scoring, the odds of you getting it back are probably slim.
And this is the guy I give it to. Whether it's a screen, whether I just line up and let him run it, Giovanni Bernard right now, give it to him.
Renner underneath, and he's got Dwight Jones. Jones breaks a tackle again. Still on his feet. Finally bumped out near the 35-yard line. That was a lot of work to maybe pick up a half a yard. North Carolina has scored frequently here in the second half, but the problem is every time they've scored a touchdown, Georgia Tech's offense has been able to respond.
Bryn Renner, John Shoup calling those plays. It's all about protecting it. Don't throw the interception. That's been his Achilles heel.
Bernard gets to the 40-yard line. Almost to midfield. That's a North Carolina first down. A gain of 13 for Giovanni Bernard.
There really is something to the 5'8" tailback playing behind the 6'6" or 6'7" offensive line. It really does make it difficult on defensive players trying to sort him out. I love these little compact running backs. You watch right here, you get the big offensive guard pulling around at about 300 pounds. That's tough. That is tough duty defensively.
Renner under pressure. To his knees. Got the ball away. Will they rule it a sack? Either way, the completion to Dwight Jones will go for a loss of about 4 yards. It might be a loss of about 6 or 7 if they rule it a sack. It looked like Steven Sylvester might have gotten Renner on the ground.
Isn't it that cliche, your greatest strength is sometimes your greatest weakness? That really does apply to Renner. You know, he's a playmaker. He wants to make every play. He wants to do the spectacular. Sometimes that gets him in trouble.
Let's take a look and see if he's down. Yeah, no question.
He's down.
Ball's in his hands and his left knee is on the ground. So that should be a sack for Steven Sylvester, and it'll drop Georgia Tech only back another 2 or 3 yards, as it was still a loss on the play on the flip completion to Dwight Jones.
Renner's dad, you may have mentioned, Bob, a high school coach, was an 8-year punter in the NFL. Was his high school coach in high school in Virginia. Now his dad's a head coach in Chapel Hill. Actually coaches Butch Davis's son, who's the quarterback. But Renner's a guy who wants to make every play. And sometimes you have to coach that out of him without taking that aggressiveness away.
So we wait for it to become official.
After further review, the runner was down at the 40-yard line. The down will be second down. Please reset the game clock to 4:09. I'll start the clock. Am I ready for play?
So that actually helps North Carolina a bit. They lose 3 yards of field position. It becomes second down and 17. But they gain nearly 30 seconds of game time back as they'll reset the clock to 4:09 and they will only start the clock on the ready for play. So they'll probably get a snap off here with 20 more seconds on the game clock than they had if the play would have stood as called.
That's the good news. The bad news, it's 2nd and 17.
They'll hand it to Bernard, and he is ripped down. A loss of about 5 more. Jason Peters got him back near the 35. Now it's 3rd down and a mile.
That was a great penetration play by Jason Peters. And now if you're Carolina, you either need to pick up the tempo because you're going to have to punt it. You know, they're taking too much time right now, in my opinion, if they're Carolina, because you're going to punt this ball away and use these timeouts.
3rd down and 22, and you have to think they're probably thinking this is 2-down territory. They'll just throw one up for grabs down the sideline, incomplete. Well, here's the situation. You've got all 3 timeouts and 3:16 to go. Against the normal team, you would probably say you have to punt the ball here and play defense and use your timeouts, but it is against the triple option of Georgia Tech.
I think you have to punt it. I mean, you have 3 timeouts. You know, you can force a turnover. The odds of making 4th and 22 to me, if you were going to go for it on 4th down, then you should have thrown an intermediate pass to pick up half of it. Yeah, you have to punt it here. You don't want to punt it, but you have to punt it.
Now they decide to punt. The play clock's at 10. They have to take a delay of game penalty. You can't spend one of the timeouts here because you'll kill yourself.
Great point.
And now it's down to 2, down to 1, down to 0, and that's going to be a delay of game.
Great point.
You have no choice but to take the delay of game penalty. If you spend a timeout here, it's a timeout you have to have on defense.
That's why everything in coaching is spinning ahead to the next scenario. When you made that 3rd down call on 3rd and whatever it was, you had to have already known, am I going to go for it on 4th down or am I going to punt it on 4th down? That's why I'm saying if you were going to punt it on 4th down, get up there and go right away and save everything. Save the time and your timeouts.
Thomas Hibbard, a walk-on true freshman punter. Gets off a wobbly kick, and a fair catch is called for by Lasky. Bobbles the football. It's loose, and it looks like at the bottom of the pile he got it back, and a flag out. It looks as if the officials have already ruled that it is Georgia Tech football.
He might have meant to throw the beanbag because I didn't see any penalty right there.
Well, he called for a fair catch. But once you bobble the football, it's fair game for the defensive player to try to go after it.
Exactly. That's what it's going to be. Go pick that flag up.
Matt Merletti was down in coverage for North Carolina and got into a tussle with Lasky for the football.
Catch.
That's a 15-yard penalty. So he calls for the fair catch, bobbles the football. North Carolina sees the football loose, and it's ruled kick-catch interference. So now it's all the way out to the 45-yard line for Georgia Tech. I would think as a defensive player that you see that ball start to bobble out, you have a right to try and dive for the ball.
Yeah, the ball never actually left possession of the returner, though.
That's a tough one for North Carolina.
Tough call.
And North Carolina now calls timeout on 1st down. 2nd down at 6 upcoming as we check in with Reese.
Bob, it is time for a Dr. Pepper Big Ten Conference update. Michigan taking on San Diego State and really having its way. Denard Robinson, 3 touchdowns on the day, and Vincent Smith has added another. Wolverines have forced 3 turnovers, and they're having their way against Brady Hoke's old team, 28-7.
All right, Reese, thanks very much. Georgia Tech with a touchdown lead, 3 minutes and 3 seconds to go. And North Carolina trying to use their timeouts to get the football back, just called their first. Well, the question for Everett Withers, Coach Davey, can my defense get a 3 downs and out stop? If they give up a 1st down, that all but ends the game.
That's been the issue since they started this game. Can we stop this triple option? But you do, in some ways, Paul Johnson will play it a little more conservatively right now. You see right there, just the quarterback follow play.
And he's got a first down. Out of bounds. But that is good for a first down, as Kevin Reddick couldn't bring down Tevin Washington. So now you're a timeout down. You start again with 2:57 to go. You have to get a stop, but you only have 2 timeouts now in this series of downs.
And Bob, just back to that punt return situation where that ball was bobbled. When you bobble the ball, that does not constitute that you've lost possession of that. And the whole idea of that is a safety issue rule, as difficult as that is on the defense.
Tevin Washington lets the play clock wind all the way down before giving it to David Sims. And now a timeout called by North Carolina after a first down carry of about 3 yards. Here's another look at the bobble.
Yeah, here it is. Once you've signaled fair catch, which he did prior to that, then obviously you have the right to remain with possession of that ball without being dislodged. I mean, that's a tough interpretation right there. But more important, let's look at these Georgia Tech statistics. It's an incredible day. Again, you go to those passing efficiency, some of those things. You think about Stephen Hill dropping that major touchdown pass. They're still going to come out here with 500 and some yards offense.
2 undefeated teams as well, and both trying to get to 4-0 for the first time in a while. North Carolina hasn't been 4-0 since 1997. Georgia Tech, 1990, the last time that the Yellow Jackets began a season 4-0. Second down and 7 after the timeout. North Carolina with only 1 timeout remaining. Washington heading south, needs to head north, lost a bundle. Back outside the 45-yard line. Everett Withers calls his last timeout. It's about a 5-yard loss. Norkeithus Otis made the stop, and coming up next, a Big 12 bash as Brandon Whedon and number 7. The Oklahoma State Cowboys on the road to take on Texas A&M in College Station. Other games that you have a chance to see on our ESPN family of networks. Colorado and Ohio State. Also later on this afternoon, we'll have 11th ranked Florida State taking on Clemson. A lot of good football still to come, all heading up towards later on tonight. LSU on the road at West Virginia.
I'm not sure what that last call was. I mean, I know Paul Johnson wants to be conservative, but he just took the quarterback right there and kind of rolled out and accepted the negative yardage play. So Carolina's going to get this ball back in all likelihood right here.
3rd and 13. It'll be interesting to see the play call here on 3rd down.
Yeah, Stephen Hill not in the game. You can count on it's going to be a run.
Well, most likely, if Georgia Tech comes up shy of the first down but runs the clock all the way down, it'll be about a minute and a half to go in the game. No timeouts for North Carolina. And they run the dive to David Sims, playing to punt. They'll be able to take the game clock well down inside of 2 minutes to go.
That was a different set of plays right there. I knew he'd be conservative, but the second down call really surprised me. Georgia Tech just going to take it all the way down and call timeout. And then punt it.
So now it's up to Sean Poole. See if he can pin North Carolina deep. And they snap it with about 4 on the play clock. A wobbly kick that goes sideways out of bounds inside the 20-yard line. So not Poole's best, but it is the long field for North Carolina. They will start at their own 16-yard line after a 39-yard punt. 1:35 to go. And Coach Davey, you've got no timeouts and you have to have a touchdown.
Yeah, first of all, let's go back to the decision by Everett Withers to punt the ball. put it on his defense to get the ball back. I mean, they get the football back now with 1 minute and 35 seconds. Obviously, it's throw it every down. You need a touchdown to tie. You have to think about Dwight Jones on underneath routes. Don't panic and just launch it up in the air right now. You have enough time right now, the way the rules are set up in college football. Inside of 2 minutes, the clock's going to stop with a first down if the ball goes out of bounds. The key is block number 45 for Georgia Tech, right here. That's the key.
Boy, he switches to that middle gap. Comes around the edge. Renner throws it over the middle. Jay Boyd makes his first catch of the day. It's only a gain of 4 yards, and he's tackled inbounds by Quayshawn Neely. So it's 2nd down and 6. No timeouts for North Carolina. 4-man rush again. Here comes the blitz. Renner under pressure. He'll go down. Al Gross sends the delayed blitz. Emmanuel DeAke provided pressure.
Georgia Tech was so late in getting lined up with all the confusion, it confused Carolina.
Under a minute to go. 3rd down and 9. Renner up the seam. He's got a first down. Eric Ebron in stride. And that will stop the clock with 51 seconds to go.
Little bit surprised that Georgia Tech in a 2-deep coverage instead of a 3-deep coverage let the tight end up through the middle of the field. Normally you have a safety sitting right in the middle. Tech in a 3-deep coverage now.
Here comes the blitz off the corner again. Spinning out of traffic is Bernard, and he makes a terrific catch. Inbounds, though. That rolls the clock. 35 seconds to go. Do you spike it now or save the down? Down to 30 seconds to go. They're going to call a play. 2nd and 2. Renner. He'll go down again. It'll be 3rd down, and now you probably have to spike it to set up a 4th down play. They have to stop the clock. 13 seconds to go.
Yep.
And he will spike it. 9 seconds remaining, and there's flags
and this
down.
is going to be a 10-second runoff.
That's going to be the game.
The game will be over. It's the NFL rule. Bob, you're an NFL guy. I'll let you explain this new rule in college football.
We don't have a referee's mic to explain it. If there is a play that results in an offensive penalty where you don't have timeouts left, and it's towards the end of the game, because you don't have timeouts left, you get penalized with a 10-second runoff. That ends the game.
Here's the amazing thing about that. North Carolina last year in the Music City Bowl, they kicked a field goal against Tennessee, and that's why that rule was changed in college football. Carolina benefited from that rule a year ago in Nashville in the Music City, and the NCAA changed the rule. Last year, Carolina stopped the clock when they had no timeouts because they were in an illegal formation. It's amazing that that rule jumps up and gets them here at the last play of the game.
Very tough way for the game to end for North Carolina. But a couple of plays ago, 6 sacks in all for Georgia Tech, and this last one on Bryn Renner basically ends the game.
Yeah, it always comes down to pass protection. When you get offenses in one-dimension games, Tech a good job of just rushing the passer. Atachu had a great day today. The outside linebacker.
Atachu with 3 sacks on the day. And Georgia Tech is 4-0 to start the season. Coming up next, it's College Football Scoreboard presented by Acura. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For the coach, Bob Davie, I'm Bob Wischusen. Glad you could join us today here in Atlanta. A terrific game between North Carolina and Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech holds on to win it by a touchdown. Let's head back to Reese Davis now in the studio.